She was 75 years old. She wasn't rushing to catch a flight for an emergency. She wasn't running from anything. She was going on vacation with her husband. Then, somewhere over the Atlantic, in a packed airplane, Clara went into labor. By the time the plane landed, she was holding two newborns, a boy and a girl. She had waited over 50 years to be called Mama, and it finally happened, 30,000 feet in the air. This is the real story of Johnson and Clara. And what can happen when faith doesn't quit? They met when they were young. Johnson was the quiet, gentle type. Clara? Soft-spoken but strong. They got married in their early 20s and started dreaming of a full house. They had it all planned out. 2 sons, 1 daughter. A house with a big yard. They even picked names. But year after year, nothing happened. At first, it wasn't a big deal. Maybe it's the stress, people said. Give it time, the doctors told them. And they did. For years. Clara watched her friends announce pregnancies, plan baby showers, and raise children. She celebrated with them, at least on the outside. But each celebration made the silence in her own home a little louder. They tried everything. Herbs, supplements, church vigils, 5 rounds of IVF. Each one failed. The doctors were kind, but honest. We're sorry, but you should consider other options. But Johnson never blamed her. Not once. He held her hand through every test. And when people asked, "Why haven't you had kids yet?" he simply said, "We're waiting." At 40, they were still hopeful. At 50, they were still trying. By the time Clara turned 60, she stopped checking calendars. She stopped counting days. She told Johnson, "Let's just be happy. Just the 2 of us." And they did. They planted a garden. They traveled when they could. They poured love into their nieces and nephews. But deep down, a small corner of Clara's heart still whispered, what if? At 75, they made a decision. Not about children. They decided to take a trip to the United States. One final adventure together. No stress. No expectations. Just rest. But 2 weeks before the trip, something strange happened. Clara fainted. Right there in the living room. Johnson rushed her to the clinic. She thought maybe it was her blood pressure. Or stress. Or age. The doctor ran tests. Then stared at the screen for a long time. He called another nurse. Then another doctor. They whispered in the hallway. Clara started to worry. When the doctor came back in, he smiled nervously and said, "Ma'am, I don't know how to explain this, but you're pregnant." She laughed. She thought he was joking. But then he said the part that made her sit still. "You're not just pregnant. You're carrying twins." She looked at Johnson, and he was already crying. The next few months were surreal. She had no symptoms. No cravings. No morning sickness. The doctors monitored her closely. Every scan showed 2 healthy babies. Still, no one could explain how. They kept it quiet. Not because they were ashamed, but because it felt too holy to explain. Clara called them my 2 passengers. She said they came from heaven, and they'd arrive exactly when heaven wanted. 9 months later, it was time. They boarded the flight to the U.S. No special plan, just a regular commercial flight. Clara said she felt fine. They joked, took pictures, even shared snacks on the plane. But about halfway through the flight, Clara went quiet. She clutched Johnson's hand. "It's time," she whispered. At first, he thought she was joking again. Then came the contractions. Panic set in. A nurse on board rushed to help. The pilot called for an emergency landing, but there was no time. Clara was already pushing. No machines. No delivery room. Just faith. And the sound of 2 cries, one after the other. A baby boy. And a baby girl. Right there on the plane. No complications. No warning. Just a miracle midair. The plane erupted in applause. The crew wrapped the babies in blankets. The nurse cried. Johnson held both babies, and for the first time in his life, said, "These are my children." When the flight landed, it made headlines. 75-year-old woman gives birth mid-flight. Twin miracle at 35,000 feet. Everyone had a theory. But for Johnson and Clara, it was simple. God remembered them. They named the boy Isaac, and the girl Grace. Not because the names sounded nice, but because those names meant something. Isaac, laughter after years of pain. Grace, the gift they didn't earn. Today, Clara rocks her twins to sleep with wrinkled hands. And Johnson sings to them in a voice weathered by time. They are older than most first-time parents. They get tired quickly, but they don't complain, because they waited, and they were not disappointed. So if you're watching this and you've been waiting too long, for a child, for a healing, for a breakthrough, for something that everyone else seems to get so easily. Just remember this: delay is not denial. And sometimes, God saves the loudest yes for last. Do you believe in miracles? Would you wait 50 years for a promise like Johnson and Clara did? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes.